Breaking news from around your world on this Wednesday, June 19th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Investigators on Wednesday named 4 suspects they say are responsible for the shootdown of a Malaysian Airlines jetliner 5 years ago over Ukraine, the first suspects to be named in the case. The Dutch-led joint investigation team named the suspects as Russians Igor Girkin, Sergei Dubinsky, and Oleg Pulatov, and Ukrainian Leonid Kharchenko. The crash of Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 killed nearly 300 people, and it was long suspected that it was shot down in midair by a Russian-supported separatist group. Prosecutors said they will file criminal charges against all 4 suspects who remain at large. The joint investigation team said last year that a rocket launcher connected with the Russian military was used in the assault. That confirmed earlier findings that a Russian BUK missile was fired from an agricultural field controlled by Russian-supported fighters. Investigators have long held Moscow responsible for the attack and confirmed in a report a year ago a missile downed the airliner, which was flying between Amsterdam and Kuala Lumpur when it was destroyed. Russia's foreign ministry said on Wednesday that it regretted the findings of the crash investigation and called the murder charges against Russian suspects groundless. The court case will begin in the Netherlands March 9th of 2020. The United States sought to bolster its case for isolating Iran over its nuclear and regional activities by showing limpet mine fragments it said came from a damaged oil tanker, and said the ordnance looked Iranian in origin. The Islamic Republic has denied involvement in explosive strikes on 2 tankers in the Gulf of Oman last week and 4 tankers off the United Arab Emirates on May 12th, both near the Strait of Hormuz, a major conduit for global oil supplies. But the incidents have fueled tensions that broke out with the U.S. pullout last year from World Power's 2015 nuclear accord with Iran, followed by fresh U.S. sanctions to stifle Tehran's vital oil trade and a retaliatory Iranian threat this week to resume uranium enrichment in breach of the deal. France and Germany said on Wednesday they would crank up efforts to halt any spiral toward conflict with Iran, but time was running out and the risk of war could not be ruled out. Iran's signal of preparedness to stockpile enriched uranium beyond the deal's limit and refine uranium to a fissile purity higher than deemed necessary for civilian use prompted President Trump to warn on Tuesday he was ready to take military action to stop Tehran from developing a nuclear bomb. Iran denies it has such intentions. Meanwhile, a rocket attack on oil facilities in Iraq early Wednesday injured 3 workers, marking a continued escalation of incidents connected with the Middle East oil industry. The short-range missile attack in Basra focused on a complex used by several major oil companies, including U.S.-based ExxonMobil. Last month, the U.S. State Department ordered all non-emergency personnel from its embassy in Iraq as a result of rising tension in the region. ExxonMobil likewise had moved its foreign staff out of Basra in May. One official told Kurdish media outlet Rudaw that Wednesday's missile attack targeted ExxonMobil administrative offices. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the attacks. In a response to the increased tension, the U.S. is sending 1,000 additional troops to the region. The United Nations is calling for an independent investigation into the death of former Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi after he collapsed and died inside a Cairo courtroom Monday. Morsi, who was Egypt's first democratically elected president after Hosni Mubarak was overthrown during the Arab Spring, had been imprisoned and reportedly held in solitary confinement for 6 years. He allegedly suffered from diabetes and liver disease while in prison and was denied the proper insulin dosage and special dietary treatment. Supporters and various human rights groups have also called for an investigation, and the UN wants a probe to determine whether Morsi's lack of access to medical care or his prolonged stay in solitary confinement contributed to his death. Morsi was buried Tuesday in a suburb of Cairo. South Korea's unification minister, Kim Yon-chul, called Wednesday for a third summit between President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, stressing the importance of working-level talks to ensure a new meeting will lead to substantial denuclearization steps. The South Korean diplomat made the remark during a security forum hosted by his ministry, saying he believes the North and the United States are preparing new negotiating plans based on their assessments of the results of February's summit in Hanoi, Vietnam, that ended without an agreement. The minister said North Korea should clearly show its commitment to complete denuclearization, and the United States should help Pyongyang have confidence that Washington will keep its promise to build new relations with the North. Referring to a series of summits between regional players scheduled to kick off later this week, the minister said the most important goal of all these summits is to create an environment for a successful North Korea-U.S. summit. President Trump is scheduled to visit Seoul at the end of the month for talks with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. Chinese President Xi Jinping is planning a visit to North Korea Thursday and Friday ahead of his meeting with President Trump on the sidelines of a Group 20 summit in Japan's Osaka next week. Trump, who announced the planned meeting in a tweet on Tuesday, said he spoke to President Xi on the phone and teased an extended meeting where the two leaders are expected to hash out a deal in the ongoing U.S.-China trade war. Chinese state media confirmed the meeting would happen, reportedly saying President Xi hopes the U.S. will treat Chinese companies fairly. In May, Trump issued an executive order effectively banning U.S. companies from working with Chinese tech giant Huawei or its technology over concerns that China could use it to spy on Americans. The meeting announcement boosted U.S. stocks amid ongoing concerns about whether the two countries' volatile trade strategies will have long-term effects on the global economy. Federal authorities seized 16.5 tons of cocaine valued at more than $1 billion Tuesday from a ship docked at a port in Philadelphia. 2 members of the ship's crew were arrested following the discovery and could face federal charges. The MSC Guyane made stops in the Bahamas, Panama, Peru, and Colombia before arriving at Philadelphia's Packer Marine Terminal Monday morning, and authorities believe the cocaine was loaded onto the ship at some point during its voyage. MSC Mediterranean Shipping Company, which owns the vessel, said in a statement it takes this matter very seriously and is grateful to the authorities for identifying any suspected abuse of its services. Authorities are heralding the drug bust as the third largest in U.S. history. Pacific Gas and Electric has agreed to pay a $1 billion settlement to parts of Northern California for a string of wildfires blamed on the utility, including last year's devastating Camp Fire. The town of Paradise will receive $270 million and Butte County $252 million. Both were ground zero last summer when the Camp Fire was started by PG&E equipment. The fire, the largest in California history, killed 85 people and destroyed 13,000 homes. The deal is part of PG&E's bankruptcy process and requires approval by the bankruptcy judge overseeing PG&E's finances. Paradise Mayor Jody Jones said the settlement is fair and the city will hold meetings next month to discuss how to allocate the money. The town needs new roads and a sewer system, among other infrastructure. The settlements also include payouts to counties and communities affected by previous wildfires. Regulators last month approved allowing utilities to turn off electricity to customers if there's wildfire danger. PG&E purposely cut power to the Sierra foothills earlier this month due to the threat of a fire. More than 70 million people worldwide were displaced last year by war, violence, and persecution, the largest number ever recorded in the history of the United Nations. The annual Global Trends Report, released by the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, said that 70.8 million people were displaced the world over in 2018, an increase of 2.3 million from the previous year, and double the number of refugees, asylum seekers, and displaced people from 20 years ago. The report says the figures are conservative, as they do not reflect those who have fled Venezuela following the political instability that country has experienced this year. The report said the rate people are being displaced is greater than the rate at which solutions are being found, adding that for refugees, less than 7% of people awaiting resettlement were awarded some form of asylum. The report, released on the eve of World Refugee Day Thursday, said that every second refugee was a child traveling alone without a family, and 4 out of every 5 refugees live in displacement for at least 5 years. And that's your update for this Wednesday, June 19th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.